Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode. Today I thought I'd talk a little bit about the cost on your mental health from sort of coming in and out of prison and things. It's something that doesn't always get talked about, especially from the point of view of a prisoner, because you're supposed to be punished going into prison. Everything that happens, part and parcel of that, you go into prison, is always just seem to be as part of your punishment, part and parcel of dealing with your crimes, and all the focus is on the victim really, and rightly so, as it should be. But very few people look at the mental health effects that it has on on the inmates and the staff as well, in prisons. All right, so I've talked a little bit about this before, but I just thought I'd go back again and sort of revisit it because it's something that's a reoccurring occurrence. Even this morning, I sat there and I'm dealing with things in my head and trying to work out the best scenario to do things, and before you know it, suddenly you find yourself and you're in tears and you can't understand why. And as a man, it's difficult to admit to these things, and it's difficult to approach these subjects with other people. I found that, as with most things in my life, just being honest about it. I talk to my wife and I tell her I went for a walk this morning and I started crying. These are the way I deal with my problems, and I just try and be as honest as I can. When you come out of prison, the biggest thing I've seen, and the biggest change I've seen, is kind of my loss of identity. Because when I was a criminal and when I was in prison, you have a real strong identity. You are a criminal. I loved being a criminal. I loved being a crook. All my life, I just wanted to be a gangster and a criminal, and I leaned into that so much. And I surrounded myself with people that, enjoyed that too, and enjoyed being around me. And I surrounded myself with, girls who were excited by criminals and crooks and things like that. But it's a shitty existence, and, it's not one that lasts, and it's fleeting. People living on their emotions like that, they often end up being drug addicts and depressed and suffering as well, because they can't deal with the stress of that kind of lifestyle. My ex-girlfriend, she started going bald from the bald, her hair literally started falling out from the stress I put on her. And it's all fun and games until it's not. So yeah, today, like I said, I just want to talk a little bit about the long-lasting effects and some of the things that can happen later on down the road from prison. So we were looking at sentences yesterday. I was looking at some of the sentences that were dished out to people, and I was talking with my wife about it, and I was saying that weirdly, a 2-year sentence can feel like sometimes it goes quicker than a 6-month sentence. And the reason being is that the first couple of months are difficult when you go in prison. They go slowly, and the last couple of months are difficult because you start thinking about getting out. But if you're doing like a 2-year sentence or something, those months in the middle can kind of blur into one, and you can end up flying through time quite quickly. And it feels like obviously all time is relative, and it all travels at the same time. But when you're in the middle of a sentence, sometimes it can feel like the months are flying by. And yet when you do a small sentence, like under a year, if you're doing 6 months, 3 months, something like this, it can really feel like it drags. And similar to a long work day sometimes. Every day you're looking at the clock and it seems to be just crawling along. So yeah, mentally short sentences can be just as hard as long sentences, and also you don't get any of the help or support. So if you're going into prison with a 12-month sentence and you're only going to be in there for 6, there's very little set up for you, because you've got no time to put your name down for any courses. Any course you do in prison, you've pretty much got a 6-month to a year waiting list to get onto it. So there's no chance of you doing any courses. All the occupational courses are set up, for NVQ style thing. So again, you could be waiting 6 months to get on one of those courses, and then they want you there for 6 months to actually finish the NVQ. So when you're going on a short sentence, there's nothing really set up in prison for you. So you end up just being on the servery, wing cleaner, going down to education, or if there's some sort of workshop where they're, like in Exeter, where you're screwing nuts and bolts together. You can find yourself just being basically just left to kind of get on with it until you find the end of your sentence. Now, when you get out of prison, there is no help and support for you. The only contact you'll have with anybody is probation. And probation are there to protect the public from you. So it's a very odd experience. So, you go in there all happy because you're behaving and things, and you're doing everything right, and then they sit there and they scrutinise you and everything you're doing, and you're like, well, hold on, back the fuck up. You know what I mean? It's like, this is the first time in my life I've behaved, and you're still treating me like I'm a fucking crook. Well, that's their job. They're there to treat you like a crook. So it can be very demoralising, and it can be very difficult to deal with when, everybody in your circle, your family and your friends might have lost trust in you. Like I say, probation are treating you like, you're always a crook, and there's no change in you, and that's their job, like I say. So you can be on your own, and you can find yourself quite lonely when you come out of prison. Sometimes thinking back about prison can be difficult. Sometimes thinking about the memories of how low you were in prison, or how difficult things were in prison. If you've had a particularly difficult time, just the haunting memories. I know I probably still suffer with post-traumatic stress from when I was in Portland, and that was 20 years ago. So I know it can be difficult dealing with the memories of prison and working out how to go forwards. One of the things that I've found best to cope, like I say, is talking about it. With a friend or with someone who's specifically trained to listen. I've tried talking to counsellors about it, but normally trained counsellors, I spoke to the doctor and they gave me kind of like, they kind of sent you down for, I think you get 6 counselling sessions for free or something. And I went to go and speak to the lady, and she wasn't kind of prepared for my, kind of my dark side. So I was talking to her about dealing with anxiety and depression and some of the other things that some of the other problems I deal with. And then I talked to her about my landlord, who I was having a problem with at the time. And I thought that, because I wanted the Tony Soprano kind of, therapy session where you can literally just sit there and, Tony Soprano used to talk say what this and that to the therapist, and she would come back to him and, give him some advice, and, how does it make you feel when you do this, and how does it make you feel when you do that, and blah, blah, blah. And, I didn't get anything like that from this therapist, and when I was talking about the problems I was having with my landlord, and I got a bit carried away, and I was kind of saying, if he wants to keep talking shit to me, I'll nail him to the kitchen worktop. And I saw her making notes, and she was kind of talking about it, and she's like, oh, threats of extreme violence. And I was just thinking, like, oh gosh, yeah, like, this is just a normal, nice girl. And suddenly I've come into her world and brought my storm with me. And, her ability to be able to help me was taken away by my dark side and my ability to bring the violence. And she then went from being someone who was trying to help me to being someone who was just trying to back off and protect me. And funnily enough, I didn't get all my 6 therapy sessions. I think she ended it after about 4. She probably just wanted me off her books and back to a normal life. So, yeah, it can be really difficult when you come out of prison because not everyone even wants to listen to you. Again, as the perpetrator of the crime, there's nothing set up to help you and help your mental health. You kind of see yourself as the bad guy. You can beat yourself up quite a lot. I know a lot of the times I always look to myself as I'm the bad guy, I'm the bad person doing all these bad things to people. I didn't look at the influences I had in my life that made me act the way I did until much later in my life. And, you start to look back and you see that possibly those early seeds, nobody made my choices for me. But, when you're planted in a shitty situation, and you're going to grow up in a shitty situation, sometimes the shitty choices you make were the shitty choices of your parents. You just felt like it was the only option you had. But now I'm older and I've moved away from that shitty situation. I can see that, even though I made my own choices, I was led down some paths. And probably wasn't given the best set of tools to deal with life. And, with my foolhardiness and my strong will, I went off like a firework in the wrong direction. But, now I'm pulling my life back together now. And I've realised that there's many more tools than a sledgehammer in my armoury to try and deal with things and problems. And as you grow up, it becomes all about being much more capable. Standing back and taking time and being considered and being respectful is way more important than hot-headedness and being outspoken and being aggressive. So those are my little tips for dealing with things. Just trying to take a step back and don't do anything, in my sense. So going back to mental health again, sometimes my mental health, it becomes a bit like a washing machine. I can get fixated on problems, even small problems, because going back into prison, a very small problem could end up being violent and aggressive, and I'm amplified into a big problem in prison. And if you don't deal with the small problems, they sometimes become bigger problems in the weeks and months later down the road. So I always find myself being hung up on very small problems sometimes, and I have an inability to be able to move on. And sometimes it can ruin my day. Something small that happens at 8:30 in the morning, I can still be feeling miserable about at lunchtime because I haven't been able to process it or deal with it in an effective way. And the way that my body's been set up and the way that my brain's been set up after coming out of prison, things have to be fast, effective, and quite violent for me to be able to deal with things. And obviously in the real world, that doesn't work out or work in the slightest. So I've had to have some more coping mechanisms in dealing with things. Now, obviously, my reaction is way too big for the small things that are happening. So as soon as I recognise and I feel myself in this miserable, angry, upset state, I have to just recognise that, well, my happiness is my goal, and doing anything while I'm in this miserable, upset, or unhappy state is not taking any steps towards my goal of being happy. So, say for example, I'm starting off my day, my wife comes down and she says something to me that annoys me or upsets me in those first sort of exchanges. Now, rather than let that one conversation ruin my day, rather than having a massive argument with the wife over something that she may not have even realised she's upset me, I may be feeling. The problem with having sort of mental illness is that sometimes people can upset you without even realising they're upsetting you. In your sensitive state, you can be far more sensitive than you would be, or you take people way more literally than they mean. So it can be difficult. So you just have to recognise that you are being amplified in your sensitiveness to people, and rather than start an argument or have my whole day ruined, it's probably best to just spend half an hour sorting my shit out, sort my head out, get out the house, have a run, have a workout. It's difficult to get hung up on small things when you're trying to do 100 press-ups in half an hour. So when you are feeling down, when you are feeling caught up, some of my best solutions is to just get out of it with sports, get out the house, go for a walk, do something, spend an hour just getting over it, and then you can rescue the rest of your day. Now, recently, I'd feel that I'd moved jobs and I'd gone to a laundry job, and even though it was hard work, it was quite simple work. So once you got the hang of shifting laundry and throwing things about, then it became quite easy and you could just switch off. Sometimes I'd be left with my thoughts and I'd end up thinking about people that had pissed me off years ago, and I'd get quite angry and annoyed. Or sometimes again I'd think about maybe an argument I'd had with the wife, and I'd become quite upset and down. And 11 hours in the laundry with my own thoughts was sometimes quite a difficult place to be. But it gave me plenty of opportunity to kind of assess my life and think about things. And one of the thoughts I'd had is that I'd kind of given up again. I'd stopped trying. The laundry was paying me a minimum wage, and I didn't have to turn up there. I didn't have to do anything. I just had to sit there and grab the laundry as it came past. Whereas in my sales roles before, I'd had to try, I'd had to work hard. You have to present yourself, you have to push yourself. At this laundry job, they were only asking a bare minimum of me, and I was taking a bare minimum wage for it. And for 6 months or so, I lounged around in that job that I really didn't like. But what I found was I was doing a lot of soul searching and reflecting, and when I was being honest with myself, I had given up. I had stopped trying. But trying is scary. putting yourself out there, whether it be, looking for a new job, whether it be trying in a relationship, whether it be, admitting the relationship you're in isn't working and that you need to move on and try something else. Sometimes those honest decisions are the toughest ones you have to make, and you can find quickly that you're working really hard just trying to avoid making those difficult decisions. But once I made that decision and I left the laundry and I moved into another job, my mental health was infinitely better. I'd realised that once I moved away from sales roles, there wasn't the pressure or the targets on me and things. In a little admin job now, literally if I don't finish the work one day, it just moves on to the next. The people are all chilled and relaxed, and everyone just does their job and gets on with their life. In a sales world, everyone's trying to shit on each other and fucking work their way up to the top of a pecking order. Whereas in a little sales office, everyone just wants to chat and get along and kill time till 5 o'clock. It's a completely different experience than I've ever been in, and weirdly I am really enjoying it. So again, dealing with your mental health, a lot of outside influences. If you are feeling down and pretty shitty, sometimes it's not your life that's bad or shitty. It's just your circumstances. I was starting to have suicidal thoughts while I was at the laundry. Now, what I mean by suicidal thoughts is I wasn't sort of sitting there thinking, I'm going to kill myself when I leave here today, or tomorrow morning, I wish I was better off dead. But what I was thinking about is, it would be easier if I wasn't here. And I was going down that track of just giving up. I'm getting close to my 40s now. Pretty much, other than the successes of my life, moving forwards and keep growing, I haven't really done much with my life. You could, from a negative point of view, you could look at and say I've failed at quite a lot in my life. But then from a positive point of view is, I've come from rock bottom and I've, gained a marriage and a career and everything else. But, when I've got that little depressed head on, it doesn't see all of that. And it only focuses on the negative. So, when I was in the laundry, I was, suffering with a few suicidal thoughts. And the only thing that you can kind of really do to kind of get around those kind of feelings is, just box it off, recognise it as, again, this is a bad day, not a bad life. And don't kind of react to it, because a lot of the things you do when you're suicidal, maybe the self-harm or the taking pills, driving up to the cliffs, that sort of thing, these are all very, very definite actions. They only have very definite results. Whereas if you just don't react, see how things are tomorrow, see how things are next month. I work on this philosophy that, if you look back on my life, every 10 years things have been dramatically different, and I've been in 100% different place. So right now I'm 39. So if you look back to when I was 9, I was a little kid in a Luggan. My dad had just died, and I'm in primary school. If we jump forward to 19, I'm in Portland prison. My world's changed. Everything's on its ass. I spend my whole 19th year in prison. I don't even see, any kind of breath of freedom. Jump forward to 29, I'm out of prison. I've sorted my life out. I've just met my future wife. I'm just getting into the world of work, and I'm about to sort everything out in my, career, going from being a criminal to an upstanding member of society. And then if you jump forward from 29 to 39, I've had a whole sales career that I've got bored of. I've done everything I can in the, in the work world, and now I'm looking at going into my 40s as a man, and hopefully trying to improve on the life I've had so far. So who knows where I'm going to be by the time I get to 49, and what experience I would have had. Like I say, so much has happened in the last 10 years. Like, I don't doubt for a second that the next 10 years are going to be just as exciting or just as different. So even though things are relatively murky now, they're much better than they were 10 years ago, and I'm sure in 10 years' time they're going to be so much better again. So yeah, pain is temporary. Belief is everything. Keep moving forward. Never give up. Never back down. Thank you very much for listening. Do all the stuff that YouTube likes. like, subscribe, follow me on Instagram, comment below. I always have a look, and I'll always try and get around to commenting. All right, have a good one, guys. Thank you. Bye-bye.